get financing at 10% down. Your cash on cash return will be as high as 70 to 100% per year. The listing stayed on the market for too long. That made me famous as a preschool agent all of a sudden. And then sky was the limit. Today I sell almost 90% of the childcare centers in Silicon Valley and about 60 to 70% of the childcare centers in California. Almost every transaction in a childcare or any business brokerage will be through an SBA loan, Small Business Administration loan. So SBA loans are backed by the government. There's an SBA guarantee on it, right? Then SBA won't come after you personally.
Hi, Ravi.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing good. Hey, Ravi, thank you so much for joining us. You are San Mateo County's top commercial realtor. I mean, you're beating almost everyone, in the county to be the top realtor. There must be a secret sauce to you, and today we're gonna try and find out what the sauce is, and hopefully we'll get to taste some of it. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became the numero uno in all of San Mateo?
Well, how I became number one is a different story. It's all about, production at the end of the day, right? But how how I got into what I do right now is an interesting story. So basically, I started off. My family business back in India was always in real estate. So I had the real estate bug in me, blood in me, whatever you call it, right? So when I moved to Silicon Valley, at first I didn't know what to do. We are in the valley, so I actually, joined a startup working for them, but I didn't like the tech part. So I quit, and then I decided to get into real estate, which is what my experience has been back home. So I got my license, joined Intero. Since then, I've been with Intero. It's been like over 10 years now. And I initially started off as a residential agent, which everybody does. But on the back of my mind, I was always a commercial agent. In fact, my first interview or meeting with Intero was with the commercial division itself. So I joined the commercial division from day one, but even though I started doing a few transactions residential in the beginning. But anyways, eventually I got into commercial and then started, coincidentally got a listing. I'm just cutting my story short, but I got a listing, which was my first childcare center listing. It was a preschool back in San Jose. And, interestingly enough, I became famous with that listing because it for some reason there was a dispute in that family, and every time I got them an offer, which I think I got them over 16 to 17 offers over the time I had that listing, they never accepted any offer. They kept making excuses, but long behold, the listing stayed on the market for too long. That made me famous as a preschool agent all of a sudden, and then sky was the limit. Today I sell almost 90% of the childcare centers in Silicon Valley and about 60 to 70% of the childcare centers in California. So that's where I began my journey as a business broker from childcare.
Holy crap, that's quite a story, Ravi. It's really an honor to have you on the podcast today. So one of the things that it's quite common in Silicon Valley is that there are lots of engineers because we have some of the world's biggest tech companies in Silicon Valley, obviously. Mm-hmm. And engineers are quite rich, as we all know. And a lot of them want to get into basically investing their wealth. So this is one of the things that I see a lot at open houses. And I think today what you are going to talk to us is basically how to find and value a business. This should be quite important, or at least be interesting for engineers, I guess.
Yes, definitely. So in fact, good that you asked that question, because today, almost 80 to 90% of the calls that I get, inbound calls that I get from buyers looking to buy a business, are from engineering background, right? They're either in tech or biotech. They're looking either for a career change or a side gig to make sure they have diversified income stream, or they feel that they have probably not much left in their life cycle with a job, right? Everybody is getting older, so they feel that probably they would want to have a career switch sometime or the other, or they're just burnt out in the tech industry, right? Most of my friends who are now friends, but originally they met me as a broker and a client, they started off buying one preschool, for example, and today they own 6 or 7. And some of them quit their jobs when they were on their second or third location. So basically, what I call that as as like a replacement income, right? So, some people buy it as a side gig, as a tech employee, but there are a lot of them that are trying to replace their technology income or whatever salary that they make by going into their own small business venture or acquiring an existing business with a existing cash flow and making sure that their income stays the same and they became their own boss versus reporting to a boss in a tech company.
Wow, that's really quite a story.
So let me start with what type of businesses are out there for, you mentioned tech people, right, to buy, and what type of businesses they are actually calling me for, right? So obviously there are restaurants, which is, on top of everybody's mind. Everybody thinks, restaurants make a lot of money. There's car wash, there are preschools, childcare, which obviously I have a specialty in. There are laundromats, dry cleaning stores, gas stations, of course, auto dealership, auto body shops, hotels, motels, and medical and dental practices, right? So every business comes with its own nuances and pros and cons, right? So for example, restaurants, obviously they're more labor intensive. Owner has to be quite involved, and they need to have a passion for the food industry. So it's not everybody's cup of tea, right? Car washes, on the other hand, could be passive or active. It depends. Preschools, childcare, same thing, could be active and passive. There are many providers out there that sit on a day-to-day basis in their centers and run a small center where they're actively involved. Versus there are much larger centers that are owned by people who have multiple centers, so they don't visit their center every day. So long story short, all these businesses require, some due diligence on how much time you want to spend in them, right? So there are buyers of different type that contact me all the time. Obviously, business have, different valuations now, which we can dive into later. But for now, I will, talk about childcare business, for example, because those are the most in demand. A childcare business has a tremendous amount of value. They sell at either $10,000 per license capacity or minimum 4 times multiple of the NOI or STE that they generate, right? So a lot of people call me up and they say that, hey, why should we buy a business? Why should we not start a business where we don't have to invest so much? However, they're not aware that if you are buying an existing cash flowing business, it gets a lot easier to finance it, right? A childcare center, for example, you can get financing at 10% down, which is pretty good because your cash on cash return will be as high as 70 to 100% per year, which is quite high. Versus, starting from scratch, A, you won't get financing for it. B, you would be obviously spending a lot of more money from out of pocket before it actually shows some positive cash flow, right? And you may even go wrong with it, may not be able to ever, turn it around. Secondly, to find a location for childcare is like a needle in a haystack. It could take years. And then to get permits is an expensive process as well. It could take up to 2 to 3 years to just get approvals. So I always, educate my buyers about buy versus, starting from scratch. There are people who do listen, people who don't, and then they burn their fingers, or they call me up after spending about a year looking to start a business. Hey, you know what? We wasted time. Now let's go ahead and buy a existing one, right? So any questions?
How do you even, if I don't know anything about the childcare business, how do I buy it? How do I manage a childcare business after I buy it?
Good question. So First of all, there are buyers again of two kinds, right? Some families, even though their husbands are in tech, the wives have indeed worked in a childcare facilities, have some experience around it, and they enter. Then they want to buy their own with that experience. However, there are some other buyers that have zero experience, no experience at all, but they're fascinated by how much a childcare business can make, right? So the way typically people get first into this industry is that they buy an existing business that is already operating with the full with the full staff in place, right? They have a director in place, they have all the teachers in place. They don't, but once you have a director in place, you don't need an existing you don't need any skills or any education around it, or any validation around it, right? You can be an owner operator and let your director who has the certification do the business. So yeah, just to answer your question, most of the buyers go that route, wherein they buy an existing facility with existing staff in place. So basically all that SDE equals to NOI plus the add backs, and the valuation is 4 times SDE. Now there are centers that are unfortunately may not be doing well, could be because of, especially during COVID times, right? And a year or two post-COVID, centers took a long time to come back. So they didn't have a NOI. They were either negative cash flow or just breaking even. So we couldn't value them. That's when, I actually came up with a standard to value, which never existed, is that I valued them at $10,000 per licensed capacity. So if you are, say, if you have a childcare center which is licensed for 50 kids, the minimum base valuation will be 500,000, 10K into 50, or 4 times SDE, whichever is higher. And now
what
that
is
has become the
capacity?
gold standard. License capacity is the so license capacity is how much is the center licensed for, right? How many kids you can totally have, basically. It also depends on the square footage of the both indoors and outdoor play area. In the licensing world, it is 35 square feet per child indoor space requirement and 25 square feet per child outdoor space requirement. And that determines the total capacity.
So if the childcare can accommodate 50 kids, you will take 50 kids and multiply that by 10,000.
That's the minimum value. Now, if that same childcare is doing well, it's at least 80% occupied, then I won't be surprised that it's making close to 150 to 200,000 in SDE. So I'll then multiply that SDE by 4. Say it's 200,000 SDE, then it'll be valued at 800,000. Now, if it's not doing well, then the minimum valuation will be set at 500,000.
So based on this, so minimum value would be 500,000, and even if it's at a loss, basically
yes.
making. Oh wow! How are you going to get a loan to borrow that? I mean, you mentioned earlier that 10% of it is basically, you only have to put up 10% of it, and then you
right.
borrow 90 against that. How does that work?
So borrowing works on 2 bases, right? One, of course, if it's a buyer that has no experience in this industry, then the lender is going to solely go on the cash flow of the business that it's being bought at, right? Now, obviously, lenders have some wiggle room because there are lenders that I work with that specialize in childcare, so they know the childcare industry the way I do. I know the childcare industry as a broker. They know childcare industry as a valuation and how it's valued, right? So they would then do their own cash flow analysis as well by comparing, how much other childcare businesses in that geography, in that neighborhood are charging. What is their occupancy versus this childcare's occupancy? And then obviously I would have to make them understand that, hey, why is this center not doing well? What is the reason behind it? Could be a health of the seller, could be their absentee, being away from the business, or Could be a whole bunch of reasons. Could be a dispute between the partners, etc. So they need to buy into that story. However, if it's an existing buyer, meaning the buyer has existing other childcare facilities and he's just expanding onto this one that I'm selling to him, then it makes it much easier, because then the lender is going to go with his experience on his other centers and underwrite the deal accordingly.
If you buy a business, let's just say I'm an engineer, I come out and buy one of your businesses. And after I buy the business, am I on the hook personally for the amount I borrow? Is there a way to basically have the business itself, basically to secure the loan?
Yeah,
like
so
as in a house.
Yeah. So basically, most of the transactions, in fact, almost every transaction in a childcare or any business brokerage will be through an SBA loan, Small Business Administration loan. So SBA loans are backed by the government. There's an SBA guarantee on it, right? So say, something goes wrong in the industry, say your business is destroyed because of earthquake or anything, right? Then SBA won't come after you personally. All right. So there is a guarantee fee that you pay when you get that loan. That fee is like an insurance policy for protecting, the banks who come after you for the loan. If that answers your question.
It answered in the case of if there's a black swan event. The question here is, if I run the business to the ground, am I still, liable for their loans?
Of course you are, right? I mean, the SBA will take a lien on your property when they're giving you the loan to the extent of the loan, right? So, yes, in some capacity you are liable, but at the same time, it is a very protected loan. They're not going to nickel and dime you or screw you just like any other commercial loan or a land loan, right? Where they can really come after you personally. In this case, if unfortunately, if the business does go down, I think the SBA guarantee fee that you pay is does provide you some sort of a protection.
So if I own a house, I'm an engineer, I own a house, I have a $2 million of equity in my house, and I have, let's just say, $100,000 in cash. I can actually activate my cash, buy a small business, and use my house that has $2 million in equity, and go ahead and run this business. Would that be a fair statement?
Yes. In fact, a lot of people do buy through a home equity line of credit. They don't even go for an SBA loan.
Oh, why?
One, recently, obviously, the interest rates have been high, right? So, and I mentioned an SBA guarantee fee, which protects the loan. So that guarantee fee comes at a cost, right? It is a couple of points of the loan that you need to pay. So a lot of recent buyers have want to avoid paying that fee twice, meaning they know that the interest rates are in a downward trajectory. So they want to take a midterm or a small term HELOC loan, and then once the rates are down, then eventually get into an SBA loan, so they don't have to pay the SBA guarantee fee twice, right?
Okay. Wow.
Sure. So, I think one of the questions that, everybody has on their mind is, how do we find businesses, right? So yes. I had a slide on, basically how to find and value businesses. So obviously, first thing first, you need to hire a broker, right? Who would be able to, not only find a business but make sure that it's being valued correctly, right? There could be, I've seen many instances of, the brokers not having enough experience how to value businesses. So you need to make sure you hire the right business broker, not a residential or a commercial broker who's not done business brokerage before, right? And also not rely on the valuation or financials provided by the seller, right? You need to have a broker who knows how to underwrite these deals really well. Therefore, try to hire somebody who's niche in that industry, right? For example, childcare, I have a niche in that, right? And then as far as which sites to visit for finding businesses is, Biz Buy Sell is one of the best sites. BizBen is out there. There's Crexi also. Crexi would mostly have commercial real estate there, but there are brokers that are putting businesses out there, including myself. I store a lot of my inventory and my listings on Crexi. So yeah. Who are today's buyers? Today's buyers are mostly tech and biotech workers that are trying to diversify into different income stream, looking for alternate careers, probably lost their job or are always scared of losing their job, so trying to divert into a different career stream. Some other people are looking for passive cash flow with limited involvement, right? And then obviously the existing business owners that are looking to expand, right? It could be an existing childcare operator, restaurant operator looking to expand. We also did touch upon this. This is different ways to value businesses, right? For example, restaurants would sell between 2 to 3 times the NOI of the business, or sometimes even 1x of the total revenue, gross revenue. Laundromats sell for 3 to 5 times NOI of the business. There was a time when laundromats were very, 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 very popular. Today, you got to be careful because most of the neighborhoods are getting gentrified, which means people have their laundry machines at home, which means the laundromats are starting to not do well. So you need to buy laundromats in not so good neighborhoods to be able to make money, right? If you're buying a laundromat in a good neighborhood, you're not going to make money. Seller discretionary earnings is what typically we look for. How much is the seller taking home is pretty much essentially what seller discretionary earnings mean. How much is the seller taking home in their pocket? So the way it is calculated is it's actually the net income of the business that they disclosed on their P&Ls or on their tax returns. But obviously, as you know, you don't disclose everything in your tax return. So you basically add back the depreciation, which is a notional expense. You add back the amortization and interest payments that you're paying probably, the seller is paying on their loan, right? Which is not going to be the loan of the buyer. So you add that back. And then you add back all the personal expenses that the owner is showing on the business, including owner salary, if they're taking any salary, right? So basically SDE is net income plus add backs. SBA financing is obviously one of the most beneficial way of financing a child or any business, because you get the highest LTV, loan to value. Childcare, for example, comes at 10 to 15% down. Every businesses have different risks, and therefore every lender will look at a business at a different risk profile and risk appetite. So restaurants, for example, will require minimum 50 to 60% down, if at all they can even get funded, right? Most restaurants don't even get financed. But when it comes to childcare, they're very attractive for financing. You can get it at 10 to 15% down. SBA interest rates are typically lower than commercial real estate interest rates, but they do come up with a very long closing time, right? SBA typically on an average from the time a business goes into contract till the time it closes, if it's going through an SBA loan process, it's about 4 to 6 months. So it's a long process. We as broker have to handhold the entire transaction, from educating the buyers what is required to get finance, from making sure their license application, if it's a childcare or any other liquor license, for example, restaurant license, we need to make sure that they are able to get their license, they are able to get licensed for that facility or whatever they're buying from the current owner. So that's a process. Of course, SBA loan is a process. So all in all, we have to do a lot of hand holding, a lot of paperwork, and a lot of education between the buyers and the sellers when we're doing these transactions.
Do you have any parting advice you can give to a person, an engineer that would like to buy a business here in Silicon Valley? Any parting words?
Yes, I mean, all I can say is, we're in the world of AI. People are in fear of losing jobs. AI is going to replace, as you know, a lot of different industries, right? Small businesses like childcare businesses, restaurant businesses, laundromats are probably not going to be replaceable by AI, right? That's why the smart people have started diversifying into the acquisition of these businesses, and I think it's a right thing to do. Silicon Valley, Bay Area in particular, is expensive place to live. You need that income stream. You need multiple income streams, even if you are not scared of losing your job, but you still should plan for the future and look into buying a business. If you do make real estate investments, especially locally here, you don't get more than a 2 to 5% return, right? Depending on residential versus commercial. But if you buy a business with a little bit of hand holding and little bit of work and diligence required, especially for businesses that do not require that much, owner attention, you can make a 20, 25, 30% return on your investment IRR, which is way better than investing in real estate, right? So I would definitely encourage more buyers to come forward, which I'm already seeing, right? Every day I get at least 3 to 4 calls from buyers that are trying to, that have never bought a business before, and this is their first time, right? They're looking into it. So that's slowly increasing, but I think that's how people should plan their future and their stay in the U.S., right? So,
right, cool. Thank you so much again for coming on my podcast. I really appreciate the time and more importantly the stories. The stories are amazing, and you've given us a lot to think about. So. Hey guys, if you guys are living in the Bay Area and if you want to reach out to Ravi, his information will be in the description. All his contact details will be there. So reach out to him or reach out to me. Either ways, we'll make sure we'll get you sorted out. Again, thank you so much, Ravi, for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time. Thanks.